paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. Now, I got a really special guest. She's been here before, but Sherri Brake is, we just talked, incredibly, amazingly busy. She's the owner and operator of the Haunted Heartland Tours. And the last time she was a guest here, we chatted about it. I know she just told me in September she's taken a group, and I'm sure there's tickets available. We'll find out, to Scotland for 10 days and hitting the haunted spots in Edinburgh and some of those places. Might want to look into that, and we'll get her to talk about her website, what she's doing on there. Also, last time I talked to her, she'd done Ireland. She does a tour, a bus tour in Nevada, and she managed to get to the back gate of Area 51. That's why I'm wearing my alien shirt here. She has been there, done that. I got the t-shirt. Seriously, she is. This tour involves the Clown Motel there and some of the other haunted places, plus just a lot of stuff going on. She's probably, I'm going to say probably, she's hasn't been officially notified that she'll be speaking at the Mothman conference in September. And she's got several other lectures coming up. She lectures with Troy Taylor, who's he's one of the big wigs, man. So that's really saying something. And honestly, so is Sherri. So let's bring Sherri on, and we'll find out what's going on with her.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Oh, I can't complain too much, but I'm not nearly as busy as you are.
Oh, I don't know about that. I keep an eye on you too, so.
So tell us, we were talking before, you've got a lot of lectures coming up, and I want the folks to know about that. First off, and I should have done this earlier, and it slipped my mind, but what is a email address, or I should say a website or something they can find?
Sure. They can reach me through my Facebook, which is under Sherri Brake. I have about 9 different Facebook pages, so they'll be able to find me on social media. I also have an Instagram, but the best way is through the website, the good old-fashioned website, and the address for that is hauntedhistory.net. hauntedhistory.net. And once they get on there, they can see the calendar for the year. They can see some of the past places I've investigated. They can purchase books. They can email me directly through the website or text me, and they can be introduced to the world of the paranormal through my eyes.
Well, you've done so much. Guys, we met at the Blenner Hospital. We were just discussing about 2.5 years ago or so.
Yes.
And just the things. First off, her lecture was awesome. But also talking with her afterwards, and especially talking here on the show, we found out so much more that she does. Ireland, Scotland. Did you say you've been to England with this?
No, but the company that I partner with that books all my flights for me and gets my hotel rooms and things for the international tours, they're really pushing for a haunted England tour. And of course, we would have access to Stonehenge after hours.
Oh, wow.
Pretty big thing to do. And I throw in a little like the, a Tower of London tour and probably a Jack the Ripper walking tour. Everybody's always fascinated with, unsolved crime and things like that. So I'm working on that in the back,
Did they conclusively find out who he was a few months ago, or is that still up in the air thing?
Every once in a while, you'll hear something about DNA resurfacing, or somebody, with some of the genealogical research that they've done, or they've uncovered a new clue. But I don't think we're ever really gonna I don't think we're ever really going to know, especially if he was of the royal bloodline.
Yeah.
In any way, you know, they're gonna tuck that under that rug and hide it.
Well, I'm still banking on the guy in St. Louis that was a Union surgeon and happened to be in Whitechapel at that time. Reportedly had women's body parts and jars in his quarters. Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of that going on at that time because there wasn't any type of law, you know, about hiding body parts. I mean, because you could sell those to local universities and to doctors, and you know, it wasn't against the law to dig up a fresh dead body because you got paid cash for it, you know. So well,
it was a different time. What can I say?
I don't know how different we are now. There's a lot of craziness in the world right now, Dan.
Yeah, at least something's coming out. I don't think we'll ever hear all the Epstein files, but little bits are coming out. So
right.
No.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and that's what I love doing about these tours is, you know, it's not just going out and looking for something paranormal. It's, to me, it's so much bigger than that. It's the architecture of the location you're in. It's the history of the battlefield that we're walking through. It's the getting into the diaries and the journals of these people whose homes that we visit to explore. You know, doing Ireland and Scotland like that. My goodness, thousands of years of history to delve into, and you're never lacking for a good ghost story. So it's not just about the ghosts. For me, it's never been just about the paranormal. It's been about the history. It's been about the foundation. That's how you know, if you're an investigator, that's how you know a place is haunted. You've got to really dig into that dark history, interview those people, and just kind of immerse yourself in what you're doing. It's not just watching it on television and then paying $75 and going to a prison and walking around with equipment. I mean, there's a lot more that's involved with that. And I just like presenting my tours that way. You know, you might not be big on the paranormal, but you might love history. You might love architecture. You might love the American Civil War, you know, when we go and do our Gettysburg tours. So I think that it just appeals to a lot of people.
I think I told you last time we talked, but my thing is always, without history, this is just a campfire story. It's the history that turns this into a ghost story.
Yes. And my years as a Civil War reenactor, I truly immersed myself in that era. The clothing that we would wear, the very food that we would eat at our events, everything had to be period correct, because we would be inspected by the public. The public would come into our tents. They'd come into the areas. They'd sit by us with the campfire, and we had to kind of like be in and of that era. You couldn't be sitting there on an iPad. Well, number one, iPads weren't invented yet, but my kids couldn't have their Nintendo 64 out. Way back when, playing with it. They had to play with period correct stuff. And I think when you truly love the history like that and you become an investigator, it just takes it to a whole other level.
You know, we've talked, how many books do you have out now? You got to be closing in on 20.
Well, my brain's a little tired tonight. I had a stroke 5 years ago, and after I had the stroke, I was afraid to really write. So I really got into designing dream journals.
Okay.
And ghost hunting journals and things like that. So I've got about 30 or 40 items on Amazon for purchase. They're not all books, but I want to say probably maybe I have 14 or 15 books out now. I'm not sure. Isn't that terrible?
I had no idea about the stroke. That's wild. Five years ago.
5 years ago, just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
You were just a kid then.
I was young because I was 57. And it turned out to be a hole in my heart, which you don't really know that you have until you are young and have a stroke. And the doctor explained to me that 25% of people are walking around upright with a hole in their heart and they don't even know it. And the only symptoms that they would have would be migraines and fatigue. And that's it. Until you throw a clot and you have a stroke. So I was very lucky.
Yeah. Oh,
very
absolutely.
Lucky.
So we've got, I know I've just got a couple of your books out, The Haunted History of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Crazy place. I was in there and it's so huge. It's amazing.
It is. It is. It is the largest stone cut building in America, and over 5 miles of hallways. You've got 931 patient rooms, and what an impressive building. My aunt worked there as a nurse in 1973 as a young nurse, and she had stories, and she told us kids stories about that building.
Really?
And then my mother-in-law was actually a nurse there as well in the early 70s. And that was when they were just starting to see some of the overcrowding come in. And, that was a building that was built for 250 people when they built it. And then in the end, they had about 2,500 people there.
So there's going to be a lot of bad things going on in there.
Yeah, of course there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good nurses, there's bad, So and a lot of these treatments that these patients were getting back in the Victorian era, that was all experimental. We didn't know really what we were doing until that's why they call it practicing medicine. You're practicing it, right?
Yeah,
you're
I
trying
get it.
to figure it out. Yeah. So there was a lot of abuse with the patients. There was a very high amount of transorbital lobotomies that were done that changed people's lives forever.
And the guy who designed that wasn't even a doctor.
Doctor. Walter Freeman was the one that was really well known for going around and perfecting his procedure. Without anesthetic, it would take about 10 minutes to do it. And instead of cutting through the frontal lobe in the forehead, they would go in through the tear duct. Yeah. And would do a transorbital lobotomy. And it was quick, it was fast, it was low cost. And the patient ended up having black eyes after it was done, and it would change their personality forever. They would have no aggression. It was a perfect cure-all. You didn't have to give them a pill. They would just basically sit as a vegetable all day long. So what a horrific
life
that is. I mean, yeah, it's just, and I think a lot of that's imprinted in those old hospitals, those old asylums, even the prisons. Sure. Just that heaviness, that despair, that angst, and it just hangs on the atmosphere. And you can really tell when you walk into a building like that, even during the day. It doesn't have to be at night. It doesn't have to be at midnight. It could be a 2 p.m. tour in the afternoon, and people see things there. So I'm glad you had a chance to explore Tala, because it really is something. I'm about 45 minutes south of there.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not too far away.
See, we also talked last time about the West Virginia Penitentiary, and yes, you told us a story about a couple of guys who were real heroes with you on there. If I remember.
Well, I've got a lot of stories. Which, do you remember any more of it? I'm trying to. Did they do something?
Yeah, they ran out screaming, I believe, or one was hunkered down.
That narrows it down. I can think of 3 or 4 that did that. And I'm not sure if this is the right story or not, but there was this was back when I was doing bus tours out of Canton, Ohio. And when everybody would gather in Canton, Ohio, they'd hop on the bus with me. There'd be 45 to 50 of us, and we would ride the 2 hours south to Moundsville, West Virginia. And I'd had the prison rented out overnight, and we'd have pizza and coffee, and we'd do a tour, and then everybody would be off on their own. And most of the time, these were people who were truly interested in ghosts. And every once in a while, you would get a skeptic who would come along with their wife or their girlfriend, and they'd stand like this, all night long, like, I don't really believe in any of this. I just came with my wife. And right. If this is the right gentleman, he went down into the boiler room. And at the beginning of the event, I always tell everybody, forget what you see on TV. You don't have to antagonize the spirits to get an answer or a reaction. You don't have to belittle them. You don't have to talk down to them. You don't have to taunt them. And I would say, don't taunt the haunt. Just remember it like that. Well, he'd gone down into the boiler room, and he had taunted what was there in the dark. And when I met him, he was up a level running down the hallway screaming. And he had gotten scratched across the back of his neck and across the back of his lower back. And he was just shaking. And I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And he said, I did something that you told us not to do. And I'm like, what is wrong? Are you hurt? Is somebody hurt? He goes, what's on my back? And he's pulling up his shirt and he's turning around and there were scratches on his back. And he goes, I was in the boiler room and I was making fun of that one inmate that you told us about, R.D. Wall. And he said, I was going, you're nothing, you deserve to die. And he said, the next thing I know, my back is burning and my neck is burning. And he said, I'm so sorry, but I want to get out of here. And I'm like, dude, do you remember you came on a bus?
Yes.
Like you're
not going to walk back to Canton right now.
Yeah, you're not going to walk the 2 hours back to Canton. But that was just one of the stories. And I'll tell you what, I have respect for buildings. I have respect for those locations, whether they're historical or not, but places that you investigate, you always have to remember this is their turf. Mm-hmm. You're on their turf. So when I go into a prison, I'm always excited if I've got law enforcement on my tour that night. If I've got a cop, that's going to antagonize this, the energy that's there. If we're at the hospital and we're doing an asylum overnight and I've got a nurse or a doctor, that's that nurse and doctor energy. That's that healing energy as well. And that can attract entities, whether you want to call them spirits or ghosts or whatnot. But yeah, so there's lots of stories to share.
The reason, though, I asked you to come on tonight because
Yes.
I saw your book, Dowsing for Ghosts and Graves. How long has that one been out?
I put out 2 last fall. This one came out, I think, in August, and then I did a book on Canal Fulton, Ohio, which is where I do my walking tours at, and it came out the following month.
So this one wasn't out yet the last time we talked, and I didn't think so, or we'd have talked.
Yeah, no, it's only been out since last fall.
Because when I go out, go to work, go shopping, whatever, the 2 things I always have with me is a firearm, because I'm a retired cop, and a pair of dowsing rods. Dowsing rods have been the greatest ghost hunting piece I have found yet. From the first time I picked them up, it's been my go-to. That and the K2 meter are my go-to tools. When I do my tours over in Pilot Mountain, I have dowsing rods and a K2, and we end the tour actually with communication. So what with dowsing rods has gotten you to the point of writing the book about it?
Well, I started using dowsing rods about the same time I started investigating. Mm-hmm. And I've had my tour company for 26 years. So it's been over 30 years ago. I was investigating when you really didn't tell people you were investigating.
Yes.
Because they would look at you kind of, yes, you as well. They didn't understand. Like, what do you mean you're going? What do you mean you're investigating? Well, you must be using a Ouija board, or you must be a witch, or, on and on and on. So you just kept your mouth shut about it. And dowsing came along about the same time. And, this has been a labor of love, because it's how many pages is it? 280, something like that. There's a lot in this book. But I have shown thousands of people to use pendulums and dowsing rods throughout my entire time doing tours, because when I would take people on walking tours, and I'm not talking 5 or 6 people at a time, my walking tours are 50 to 60 people at a time. Sometimes I was doing them 3 times a night, 6 times a weekend. So you can see how fast that would accrue. And my favorite part of the night was to be able to get a set of dowsing rods, and I would always have at least enough for 50 people to use. And we would go to an old cemetery, and I'd have 50, 60 people around me, and I would, in a nutshell, tell them the history of dowsing. I'd tell them what kind of a dowsing rod they were holding, what the word douse meant, what we would be able to accomplish in our 15 minutes in the cemetery. 80% of people can dowse. I would talk about if you're a CPA or you work with numbers, you might not have that dowsing ability right off the bat, but to keep trying. And then I would demonstrate it on a marked grave. And then I would typically walk over and show where an unmarked grave is as well. And I would hand them out to everybody. And even skeptics, once they got the hang of it, I mean, I would hear about it. People would email me after the tour. They would send me their photographs or their EVPs. But most of the time, it was people saying, thank you for showing us how to use this, because we've seen it on TV. And I'm like, well, it's been around for thousands of years. It just wasn't invented in 2003 when TAPS was out using dowsing rods. It's been used for a long time. And they're truly impressed with the fact that they can do it. And it's not just something you put batteries into. I mean, this is something, like you said, you carry wherever you go. I have a small set of rods I keep in my purse. I have a long set of rods that I keep in my vehicle. And this is something that people can really, you can use it in everyday life to do so much more than just investigate or find unmarked graves. So this was really a passionate job for me to do, is to get into my dowsing files and revisit all the stories, share some of the stories. And some are funny, some are kind of crazy, some are pretty creepy, but to be able to share that to people and say, listen, a normal person can pick these up and try it. You can make them at home out of clothes hangers. You don't need to spend $30 and go on eBay or Amazon and buy some fancy rods that light up in the dark. You don't need that. Just a simple pair of clothes hangers. And it's a pretty cool thing. So it was a labor of love, and I really enjoyed writing that book.
So why do they work?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Science will poo-poo it because it's kind of on the fringe. They've tested dowsers, and they say that dowsers pretty much haven't met the expectation. But yet, till this day, there are major companies who pay a dowser to come in to douse for water, as opposed to bringing big equipment in and drilling to find it, because it's more cost effective to find somebody with a couple of rods than it is to bring in big equipment to try to find water. And of course, dowsing was very important with the pioneers, because when they came over from Ireland and Scotland and Germany and England, they brought with them their belief system, their tools, their music, their folklore, their superstitions, and they brought with them the ability to find water. And it's all about intention. The intention of the pioneers was not to go off and look for a spirit or a ghost. The intention was to find water, because water meant survival. So they would grab a tree branch. Apple tree works really well. Willow works well. Witch hazel works well. They would cut this branch, and it would be a Y-shaped branch like this. And they would use that to walk about the field, thinking about water, with the intent on finding water. And then as soon as they would find water, that stick, that branch, would point towards the ground. And they knew that that was their spot that they needed to dig. And that's how they would find their water.
The first time I came across them, there was a guy from a local cable company. They had bought him hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of metal detectors to find underground cables. But he'd be out there with the two rods and find them himself that way. He said, this works better.
You bet.
It's incredible.
Yeah, when I lived in Ohio, I had a plumber that lived next to me, and he had a big fancy company van, with the name of the plumbing company down the side of it. And we were talking across the yards there, and he's like, hey, what are you doing this week? And I said, I got another ghost hunt. I said, and I'm instructing a class on dowsing. And he goes, do you know how to do that? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, hold on. And he goes over to his van and he gets out and he's got 2 metal rods. And he said, I use these at work. And I said, now that's really cool. I said, so how do you use them? He said, well, a lot of times the schematics for a building It doesn't really line up with where the water line is actually laid, especially if you're outside of the building. And he said it's just so much easier to grab these things and walk and think about the water, and I can find it. And he says I can tell which way it's flowing, and I can tell how deep it is as well. So
Wow.
I thought that was pretty cool. And
Absolutely.
then I had a gas leak at my house, and I called the gas company, and they sent out this 25-year-old kid with this fancy schmancy piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to be walking up and down the width of my lot out in front of my house to try to find where the gas line comes into the house. And he kept walking around with this tool. And I'm sitting there going, what is he doing? And finally I said, what are you looking for? He said, well, I know where it's at the house, but I'm trying to find it where it's coming off of the road. And I said, hold on. So I go into the house, I get my dowsing rods, I come back out, and I walk. My lot was only 100 foot wide. I walked it, and the rods moved, and I'm like, it's right here.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, no, I walked through there. I said, no, it's right here.
Yeah.
And he came over with that fancy whatever the heck it was and did this and did that. And he goes, oh my God, how did I miss it? He said, you're right. What are those? And I gave him like the little 15-minute primer on it. You know, this is what you do.
Right.
And I gave him a set of rods. And he's like, oh my God, I can't wait to show the guys at work. And I'm like, okay.
Good luck.
go forth and be fruitful. You know, so yeah, I'm like a mother hen I love teaching people how to use dowsing rods. And I'm sure you do too.
I had so much fun, especially when they feel the current coming through their hands when the ghost is that strong.
Yeah, I've had some people who they've thrown the rods back at me during a class, or they drop the rods and they're like, why are my hands stinging? My hands are hot. You know, and of course everybody else in the class is looking at them like, what's going on? But yeah, I love using pendulums, but dowsing with the rods, I just have a better connection with it for some reason. And I've used it in a lot of applications. I actually had a farmer years ago. He told me that he used them to sex his animals before they were born, like to see if the cow's having a boy or a girl. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And anyway, we ended up dating, not because of that, but this is a good story. And we were over at his farm one day, and this is like our third or fourth date. And he's like, do you want to see my pregnant cow? And I'm thinking, ooh, he's going to get the dowsing rods out. And he did. And he showed me how he did it. And I was like looking around at all the other animals, like, is there anybody else that's pregnant? Can I, like, you know, how's your dog? Can I try your dog? You know, so that opened up my eyes a little bit more to animal dowsing. And I do have a chapter on it in the book as well.
I had no idea on that one. Sherri, I've got to slide away for just a second. Would you stand by for me?
Sure.
I'll be right back. Okay, the animal thing's a little new to me. That I think I'd rather not bother with. But water, unknown graves, because you can figure out where the ground has been disturbed. Fence lines. There's so much you can do with the dowsing rods that people don't even have the first clue of. And some other things going on I want to show you. So if you guys will wait, I'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
Okay, friends, hey, I do want to hit real quick about, and I'll talk more at the end, about joining the Unexplained Network. You're proud of me, right? Because I keep wanting to say Unex. It was Unex for 4 years, but we've went back to the name, the Unexplained Network. And there's so many new shows coming out, more UFOs, cryptids, ghosts. There's several more ghost shows like this one with people who's been doing it all around the country. People like Sherri. Well, there's nobody quite like Sherri, but there's other people out there doing it too. Iron City Paranormal, who's been on this show, they've got a program on there now. I've just recently talked to them. A lot of stuff going on. So join up with the Unexplained Network. Go to unxnetwork.com. That'll find it. And there's a lot more I want to talk to you about. We'll chat more about that after the show. But I want to get back to Sherri right now because I love her stories. Sherri, so what about hunting ghosts with them? How have you been doing with that? Do you have stories related to that?
Oh my gosh. I have a lot of stories related to that. And I share, I've got quite a few that I share in the book. But from day one, way back when I learned, the very first time I used the dowsing rods, it was in a cemetery. And there was a gentleman that was there and I didn't know what they were at that time, but he had like stick looking things, and he's walking around and he's making notes. And then he's throwing something down on the ground. And as he's walking around, I'm watching this guy and I'm like, this is really weird. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what this guy's doing. So of course, I get up some bravado. I go talk to him, get out of my car, go talk to him. And he's like, oh, I'm working for the cemetery because I'm trying to find all the unmarked graves because we want to put up a fence all the way around the cemetery. And we want to make sure that we get everybody in here. There's a lot of unmarked graves. And I'm like, well, what are you writing down then? He goes, well, I'm making notations because I have a grid map. And I'm like, okay. And I said, what are you throwing on the ground? And he said, poker chips. And I'm like, okay. He goes, blue if it's a man, red if it's a woman, and a white one if I'm undecided.
That's more than I can do with them. So, okay.
And my mind was like, holy cow. Now I was in my early 20s. And I said, can you try them? And I tried it and I'm like, what is going on? Because they definitely were almost like they were magnetized. When I would walk a few steps, and he told me, he said, it's about your intention. Don't think about water, because that's what most people think of. Don't think about water, think about a body. Just picture bodies in your mind. Think body, 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 and walk. And when I did, they would cross and I would like stop. And he goes, you're on a body. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, we can determine the height of this body, whether it's a child or an adult. And I was like, the hair stood up on my arms. And I'm like, okay. And then he showed me what to do with that. And he goes, you can also determine the sex. Okay. Like it was like light bulb after light bulb going on. And he showed me. And he said it gets complicated because sometimes a woman will pass away in childbirth and the baby has not been born. So as you're dowsing, you might know that have a female response and then do it again and you get a male response. And I'm like, okay, this is fascinating to me. So that was really my first experience with it. And then, it just caught on like wildfire. No internet wasn't out there. So you know what that's like, going to the library and trying to find a book on, do you have a book on dowsing? Or, oh, you mean divining? It's divining. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take the book on divining. So
I'd forgotten that it was called divining.
Yes. Doodle bugging was another term for it.
That's a new
water witching.
Heard that one.
You're a water witcher, a doodle bugger. I thought that was kind of but, dowsing or divining, because dowsing basically means to seek or to find. That's how Webster's dictionary defines it. And that's basically what you're doing is you are dowsing. You are trying to find the answer to something or find a lost object. That's another way that you can use it, is to locate something in your home, which I've done. I've found lost glasses, lost cell phones. And I've taught my children, when they were young, they were under the age of 10, and they would hide their toys from each other at the house, and then they would grab the dowsing rods to go try to find the toy that the other one hid from them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was all good and fine until my daughter decided to do her science project on dowsing rods. And I had a phone call from the high school science teacher about that. And he was going on and on. What is this? We could all do it. I could do it. I've never seen anything like this before. And can you tell me more about it? And of course, she got an A.
So he wasn't calling to say, hey, this is crazy. This is not science.
No, but you never know when a teacher calls, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's bad.
I was expecting you to say he was saying this is not science and we need to get her on the straight.
He had a lot of questions, so that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Now, if you was telling me, and I know it's hard to do over this, but how are you going to teach me to use this?
How am I going to teach you to use it? Well, you mean if you're going to use it right now, like as if you weren't going to be able to use it? Well,
yeah, I'm someone on your tour who's never done it before.
Yeah, okay. Well, basically, just breaking it down, you're going to take, it's in the shape of an L, so it's called an L rod. There's a short end and a long end to it. You're going to take the short end, one in each hand, and hold it almost as if you're holding, and I hate to say a gun, but a pistol or something like that, like you're holding something in front of you. Waist height, comfortable, and you're going to have your arms apart, probably about 10 inches apart, a foot apart, comfortably, and you're going to hold them level, not gripping them tightly. You're not going to put your fingers or your thumbs over top of the rod. You don't want to impede them. You want to hold it naturally.
Okay.
And then typically what we do, if it's a dowsing class, I'll have a bottle of water or a cup of water, and I will put that in front of the dowser. And I will say, you know, move towards this cup of water, concentrating in your mind, asking, is this water? Is this water? Is this water? And hold the rods above it.
Okay.
And if you've got the ability, they should begin to move. It might take 20 seconds, 30 seconds for them to move. Some people, they move quickly, but they will begin to form the letter X over top of the target. And that X is your yes. That's your confirmation that what you're looking for is directly right there underneath. So in my dowsing,
over the cup.
Right. And ask, is this water? Is this water? Is this water? Some people have to say it. Other people can just think it, but it's more tangible if you say, is this water? Is this water? Is this water? Now, when I do my dowsing class, I'll have a mason jar with a lid on it full of water, and I'll have a mason jar full of vodka, and I'll have them apart on a table, and I'll have each student come up, and I will, you know, do the old switcheroo. They're not looking. And then I'm like, okay, tell me which one of these is water. And then they could, of course, it's a 50% chance. But if you put out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cups of something, and they hone in on it 100% of the time, you know, they're a natural and they're a good dowser. So there's different ways that you can practice. You know, as long as you get rid of your skepticism and just approach it with an open mind, 80% of people have the ability to use it. I have found, like I told you earlier, car keys and glasses, and I have an intention. If I lose my cell phone, I'm going to be very intent on finding that cell phone. And, you know, I've instructed my kids on how to do this, and they kind of still roll their eyes, and it'll take me less than 5 minutes to find it. I'm like, I gave you rods. You know how to use them. I know, Mom, but you're just better. I'm like, well, how bad do you want to find your glasses?
So, do you find that copper works better? Is there anything that works better than copper that you've discovered?
I've used branches before. I've used just regular like brass. I like copper because copper is a good conductor.
Right.
Copper is a little bit heavier in your hand. So if you're doing outside dowsing, it's not going to sway in the wind like something that's made of another material. So it's copper for me. That's what I use on investigations. And I have those short rods. I've got long rods, and then I have actually rods that are 3 foot long. And I will use those on big projects. I worked with a veteran cemetery, and we did this in Ohio, and they wanted to find their unmarked bodies, the unmarked graves in this veterans cemetery, and they were going to pay a lot of money to have some ground penetrating radar done. And this was a company that was coming out of Indiana. And I said, well, do you mind if I douse it first and on a map, mark my little X's on where I find all the unmarked graves, and then maybe we could compare it with the official results of the company that you paid $5,000 to come in and do it. And out of about 150 that we found that were unmarked, I missed 5. So I thought that was pretty good.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I thought that was pretty good. Yes. I had no idea that they were buried outside of the cemetery fence as well. So I neglected to go out, and I should have, but I didn't. But anyway, there's a lot of good stories that I've got that I share in this book about working on different projects. There was a builder that I helped. He was developing a piece of property outside of Akron, Ohio. And they were concerned that they had discovered some field stones while they were dozing that looked like headstones. So they had stopped. They had stopped construction, of course. They're not going to do any more grading out there because they think they might have hit a cemetery. So they checked with the Historical Society. They were thinking maybe this is an old family cemetery. They couldn't find any information on it. So somebody has suggested they get a hold of me, and they had me come out, very covertly, come out and douse and see if there were truly bodies in this field where they wanted to build a house. And I found 18. There were 18 anomalies, is what you always say. Okay. All of them were facing true east and west direction, which is indicative of Christian burial. Back in the old days, they would bury you because they believed, you would sit up in the grave and you would face the east, dawning of a new day. So all the bodies would be east, west, east, west, east, west. And that's what I found. Majority of them were adult sized, and there was a couple of children as well. So the developer said that they were not going to build a house there. They were going to just keep it as a like a green space for the development. So that was pretty interesting.
Good move. Oh yeah. We don't need a poltergeist thing going.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. I said, hey, have you seen that poltergeist movie? Because it didn't end well.
What is your opinion? And I've been coming across this for the last several years, of those people that put a sleeve over the dowsing, the L shape.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I hate that. But what do you think?
No. Okay. So what people are doing is they're thinking that maybe they are influencing their movements of their body. And these subconscious movements might be swaying the answers, that they're truly not getting a good dowsing result, or it's just being faked because of subtle movements that your body makes. So they've come up with these little wooden handles, and the rods will fit down inside of them, and they'll swing loosely, but they almost swing too loosely.
They do.
It's like you have absolutely no control, and you're accomplishing the exact opposite of what you were hoping to, because you can't control them swinging around inside of a wooden pocket. Any movement that you make is going to set them spinning. I like having the feel of the rod in my hand like that. I like to be able to control it, to feel it, because sometimes it will tingle. Sometimes it does get very warm. And I think that helps confirm to me that I've found what I've set out to find with my intention. So I'm not really sold on the wooden handles at all. And I don't like the fancy dowsing rods. The ones with the feathers and the crystals hanging off of them. The ones that light up at night. Yeah, the ones that light up at night just drive me crazy. They got like a little LED strip on them. And I'm like, really? Can we not just douse like we did in the old days with maybe a flashlight in our mouth to see what they're doing?
Now I use mine with a K2 usually, because I'm always videoing it for evidence.
Yes, that's
when
smart.
These go off and the K2 goes off at the same time, which happens a lot. It's two points of evidence.
Yes. Yeah, I remember I led a tour at Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. years ago. We rented out the whole entire building, had about 40 people with me, and we were up on the top floor on the 5th level, open air, you know.
Right.
And if you can imagine Louisville, Kentucky in August, and that humidity was just, ugh. But we had taken a bunch of EMF meters and had made a large circle with them. And then a few of us sat inside the circle holding our dowsing rods. And then when those EMF meters started going off with the lights, signaling that there's some type of energy, we would start asking our questions. And it seemed like we always got faster replies when we had that extra boost of something, some type of energy being there amongst us. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Have you been to Waverly? Have you made it there to the sanatorium?
I was there in October, and boy, this has been years ago. I want to say like 2008 or 9. There was still no windows, no glass in the windows.
Right,
and,
right.
Yeah, the place is wild. It's just amazing. And I was fairly, you know, I had done this back in the 70s. I had to quit when I joined the Coast Guard because you don't get promoted when you talk to the dead. Same thing with police work. So it would have been 2005, 2006 when I finally got to do it again after Ghost Hunters came out on TV.
Yes.
And so it was a long time ago, but I have been there and I found the place to be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the history. The
yeah.
history and the energy. You know, when you're down there on a new moon night or a full moon night, you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, that's just folklore. But man, I said, it's palpable. It's palpable when you're down there at times. I mean, some nights are quiet, but other nights it bristles. It's like it just bristles and the hair stands up on your arms. And it's like, wow, it's going to be a good night.
So let me ask you this one, because I kind of want to move on where I don't want to run out of time here without you talking more about your tours and what you've got going on.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a few things coming up. February, let's see, March 14th, I'm in Canal Fulton, Ohio, doing a program at the Canal Fulton Public Library called Haunted Ireland. So it's like an exploration of haunted locations and sacred locations all across Ireland. It's fascinating.
How many times have you been to Ireland?
8, maybe 9.
Okay.
Just on a haunted Ireland. And then I have a Celtic crossing tour where we go to both Ireland and Scotland together, in Northern Ireland too. And I have a haunted Scotland trip that is coming up. Speaking of going over there, September 1st we leave, and I just have four spots left on that, and it'll be sold out.
Wow.
So we've got a pretty good size group. Most of the time it's 40-45 people that go over there with me on this trip. In particular, I'm super excited because we're going into a castle that I've never been to. That's in the top 1 or 2 most haunted castles in all of Scotland, and that's Glamis Castle. So I'm really excited to go there. You know, the history of Macbeth, and there were numerous people that were executed there. So I'm really tickled to be able to go to Glamis Castle. And we do Stirling Castle, we do Edinburgh Castle. We're going to do Inverary Jail. We're going to take a tour there. We're going to do a boat ride across Loch Ness, which is always fun, for about an hour. And we go to Urquhart Castle and a bunch of the castles. We're going to go into Edinburgh and go into the underground catacombs, the underground vaults. We go after hours into Greyfriars Kirkyard, Greyfriars Cemetery, where the ghost of Mackenzie, the poltergeist of the Mackenzie, is said to wander around. He gets very violent, scratches people and all kinds of things there. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's in October or September. And I have some speaking engagements, some conferences I'm doing. You mentioned Troy Taylor. I love doing Troy's events. And I want to say this is probably the 14th or 15th year in a row that I've done his Haunted America conference. And it'll be the first year that I do Haunted Galena, Illinois, which is May 1st. I'll be speaking, and I'll be doing a past life regression.
Okay.
In a group setting. So that's going to be fun. I've past life regressed over 500 people so far. And usually it's 40 or 50 people at a time And that's something fascinating. We should talk about that sometime.
I was just going to say, I had no idea you did that, and that's something I'm very interested in. We'll have to get you back for that soon.
It's very interesting. I'd love to do that. And so many good stories with people that have been able to glimpse a past life, and how moving of an event that is for them, especially people that are skeptical. You know, they come in with their girlfriend or whatever, boyfriend, and then they ended up actually glimpsing one, sometimes two past lives. The most I've ever had somebody glimpse is 3.
Really?
And they had the definite, they had an impression. They could see themselves as a small child carrying a suitcase. And they said, I had on all brown, and my parents are standing next to me, and we're getting ready to get on a train.
Okay.
And she said, everybody is crying. And that was one. And then she was a little girl, dressed in a white gown, in another life. And then she saw herself as she said, I was a man. I could smell diesel fuel, and I had like grease and oil stains on my hands, and I was working on aircraft. And then she actually emailed me about a week after that, and she said that she had a very vivid dream after that regression, and it picked up with her parents as they were boarding a train. And she said we were being taken to a concentration camp.
Wow. Would that be the one where she was dressed in brown and
yes, and holding a little suitcase, and everybody was crying? And she says, I was little, I didn't know why everybody was so sad, but I was between my mom and my dad. And she said, you know, when she had that dream, then several nights later, she said it all just came into being. And she said, I woke up and I was sobbing. And so she said, we were going forth, and she says, you know, I've always had a fascination with movies about World War II. And she says, I've always wanted to go over there and see the memorials. And she said, nobody in my family is Jewish, but I just have this fascination with that time period. And she goes, I think that's really weird that when she was regressed, that's where she went back to.
Yeah. I've heard, and I've read in books about the topic. How do I say this? The same souls, I guess, will come back together. Like they may have been married to this woman. Now I'm your son, or now you're my daughter. Do you find that happens a lot?
Yes. And you know, past life regressions can explain so much about our lives today. The jobs that we pick, the musical instruments that we play. You know, like you see on TV, some little kid that's 4 years old and he's just brilliant on a piano. You know, when I see somebody like that, I'm like, oh, past life. I bet you anything he played in a past life, and that's why he's so advanced. And it also can play into the relationships that we have, who we choose as a spouse, our interactions with our children. All of it's all tied together. The relationships we have with our parents. Some of us are here to learn lessons. You know, it's just so fascinating. And especially when you meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, I'm instantly connected to that person. You have that deep bond. It's like, but we're strangers, but I feel like I know you. I really think that reflects back on a past life where your paths cross. Maybe you were married. Maybe you were father and daughter. Maybe you were best friends in that life. And then when you meet up again, it's like your soul energy, your body energy, your cell memory just clicks and you feel it.
Yeah, we'll have to get together and talk about that real soon, because that's a particularly interesting topic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you've got what you was talking about, the Scotland tour. You've got the Troy Taylor lectures.
I've got those coming up. I am going to be speaking at a Bigfoot conference later this year, but they haven't announced their speakers yet, so I'm supposed to keep mum about that. And then I threw my hat into the ring with Jeff Wamsley's Mothman Festival. I've been a speaker, I don't know, 5 or 6 times there. Was a speaker at the Mothman Festival a couple years ago. So I hope to do it again this year, because I've been working on a book on Point Pleasant.
I was just going to say, you've got a book coming out on that, right?
Yeah. I hope to get it out in May. It's going to focus a lot on the history of Point Pleasant itself, and of course on Mothman, but a lot on the battle a lot on the fact that, George Washington surveyed the area. Daniel Boone walked through there. Mary Draper Ingalls followed the river when she was kidnapped by the Indians. That's how she followed the river to get back home to Virginia. There's a lot of notable people in the past that walked the fields of Point Pleasant back before it was a city like it is now. And a lot of haunted locations in town, a lot of dark history. So I hope to get that out there in May, because nobody has really done a book on the haunted history or on the battle. And a lot of historians believe that to be the first battle of the American Revolution.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, October the 10th of 1774. And there were quite a few people that were killed in that battle. There's a lot of unmarked graves there in Point Pleasant. Chief Cornstalk was there. He was in charge of the Shawnee and the Iroquois. And I'm really excited to get this out there so people can enjoy a different side of Point Pleasant that maybe they're not familiar with.
I've heard a lot about the Cornstalk curse, so.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in there as well.
All right. Well, I do have to go. We're just about out of time. Sherri, would you wait there for me? I'll be right back as soon as I tell the folks goodbye. Okay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. And there's so much you've got going. And if I could just do one more quick thing here, that is hauntedhistory.net and also Facebook and Instagram. They can find you under Sherri Brake, right?
That's correct.
All right. I want to make sure people know, because I'm sure more of them will want to, if they can't make Scotland this year, maybe make Ireland next year or wherever you decide to go. All right. Sherri, thanks for coming on, and hang loose for a second. I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
The haunted, the past lives thing, I really got to get her back for that, just because that is so intense. I mean, I've seen people, I haven't had it done, but I just got a gut feeling I drowned somewhere along the line when I was in the service. I would almost get panic attacks just thinking about the blue sky above me, that it was like being under the water. So I know that sounds weird, but that's why I think something like that. Plus, I had some really weird dreams that way. We'll get more about that. You guys stay tuned. We'll get her back and we'll talk more about that. Hey, once again, joining the UNX Network, the Unexplained Network. Go to unxnetwork.com, come down, put in some information. You can be a regular member, and there's all kinds of extra stuff coming. The magazine, which is going to be shortly coming out monthly again, but the magazine has got some of the best writers around in it. That comes to you as a member by email once a month. Very shortly, it may be already. A lot of stories. This one on the left, I had two stories, one on the haunted North Carolina, the battleship North Carolina, and one about some Halloween legends. Another one I had was just about haunted dolls, and you guys know that was a labor of love, because I hate dolls. God, I hate dolls. And of course, I did one on what I called the last call at the Devil's Diner. It was a restaurant on Route 66, one of my first investigations, just insanely haunted. I went back 6 or 8 times. Crazy stuff. One guy, well, you all know my friend Tim Clifton, weighed in there a good 270, 280, and the thing just picked him up and threw him in against the wall. Very powerful stuff. It got hit by a tornado about a year ago, almost a year ago. And the building was pretty much destroyed. I think it's been leveled since then, but there was so much going on there. I just wrote a quick article about some of the things that had happened since I wrote about it in one of the books. So much going on. You also have the newsletter, the blog. I mean, we're ahead of everything on the blog, TikToks and all of that. So you need to check in and become a member. Other than that, I let myself go, but I love listening to Sherri. Her stories are awesome, so it's my fault. I do have to step away, folks. So I want you all to stay warm, stay cool. Weather's in that pattern where it's changing. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. 70 degrees here. We're expecting 30 for a high tomorrow, So whatever you got to do, I guess most important thing of all is to stay spooked. Good night.